They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her. Willa!
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line. Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go!
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can hide.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to How Are the Podcast, and without a midweek game once again, we're going to look back to last weekend as well as looking ahead to the trip to the East Midlands this weekend, while of course talking about all of the latest Sunderland news in between, and as well as generally just talking about the feel-good factor balloon around Wearside that is yet to pop. So to help me with all of this is someone we are very pleased is making his How Are the Podcast debut. You'll have seen his coverage of Sunderland in the Chronicle, and we are very pleased to welcome Matty Hewitt. Hello, Matty.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. And as I said, the first time on the podcast, but how's it going? Are you enjoying the season so far?
Yeah, it's been fascinating, hasn't it? I think talking to some of my mates down the pub, like it's just bizarre being covering Sunderland at a time where you've got the likes of like Granit Xhaka playing. I think when Sunderland got promoted last year, nobody could have, predicted to be like where we are at the minute. It's just great, isn't it? There's such a feel-good factor around the place, and you said there in the intro, like the bubble's yet to pop. Obviously, there'll be tougher tests ahead, but it's been a great start.
Yeah, it's funny as well, talking about the place as just as a city. It's amazing how it runs in parallel with the team when the team are doing well and as well as they are. It's amazing when you're going around Sunderland, it just feels different.
Yeah, there's obviously you've got all the redevelopment that's going on, and there's just such a buzz like on a match day. And I think Phil was talking to the lads with the Sunderland Echo, and obviously I chirped in as I do. But every day, every match day feels like a real sort of occasion now when you go into the Stadium of Light. Whereas I think sometimes in the Championship, especially, not obviously the promotion season, but the season before, it felt like a bit of a chore for some people going. Whereas now it's great, isn't it? There's such a buzz. There's such a listen to the obviously previous pod that you did with Phil, and there's such a connection that you have, between supporters and the players on the pitch, and it's just great. It's thoroughly enjoyable going at the minute.
Yeah, I can imagine a few journalists didn't fancy going to Stadium of Light the last few years when it's been a bit miserable and dreary. But before we get into the football, just a bit about you, Matty. So obviously you're covering Sunderland, but what's been your story? How have you ended up covering Sunderland?
So I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background. He's he doesn't know when to shut up.
It'll get worse than that in the background, don't worry.
Yeah, so I actually started off just straight up news journalism after I left uni. I'd done a little bit of volunteering, club sort of reporting at Gateshead, went down to Lincoln, got a job there, covered a little bit of Boston United, etc., Lincoln City. And then in the middle of COVID, the job came up at the Chronicle, moved back up, covered Sunderland in the depths of COVID when nobody was going to games. And it felt mad having like grown up in the Northeast and gone to Sunderland Uni, and even being at sort of reserve games from Newcastle, Sunderland, we were sort of invited to the Stadium of Light press box. You go in there and there's obviously way less fans in those games, but to have even sort of less of an atmosphere and you're the only one there, and conducting interviews with like Lee Johnson pitch side, and you sat like back in the stands. It felt like that was like the start of my sort of journalist career, and it just felt like you were living in a parallel universe. It was utterly bizarre. To go from that to where we are now, where you've, like Unai Emery's won the Europa League, and he sat there in front of you. It's just such a weird sort of trajectory, like, to go on. It's crazy, yeah. So that's a little sort of stop on my tour.
Well, it's interesting actually, because we talk to a lot of journalists who followed Sunderland that go back almost a decade to the point where Sunderland were last in the Premier League, and they've seen almost us go all the way down and back up again to the point where they started. But it's interesting when you said that you started around the COVID time. So you've actually seen that almost from rock bottom, and you've seen that journey, and you've only been, let's say, behind the scenes in that kind of journalist sense through that period for where we hit rock bottom until now. So how have you seen that journey from that probably worst place in the club's history to where we are now?
Yeah, I think I finished uni around 2017, so we were still sort of trying to, find your way in the media industry, and we're trying to get sort of jobs or work experience at Sunderland at the time, and obviously it was disastrous, falling out of the Premier League, and every sort of bad piece of news that came alongside that. To then, as you say there, sort of go in at rock bottom. I've been to Wembley with Sunderland, and that was a bizarre, like the Papa John's, for example, bizarre game. Nobody there. My first trip to Wembley covering them, and they won, and it felt bizarre having not won for so long. And again, people will look back on that sort of trophy and competition and be like, yeah, it is what it is. But to go from there to, again, like where we are now, it's just incredible. Like, even the work behind the scenes, it's easy to look at now, but when I first started covering the club, it felt like so stripped back down to the bones, even the media department, to now look at how many people they have behind the scenes there. It's just incredible journey as to, you can't really underplay it as how far they've actually come in that time. Like you say, picking them up at rock bottom. I think from the outside looking in prior to that, you have this perception that Sunderland are a massive Premier League club, which they are. But at that time, you go in and you're looking at the state of the club at the time. It'd been stripped back. It just felt like it wasn't what, you pull back the curtains, you bought this brand shiny new home, pull back the curtains, and all of a sudden you find it's like rotten inside. That's what it felt like going to cover the club at the time.
Yeah. I mean, so in that case, is it almost a completely different experience on a match day for you, going back to those early days to what you're seeing now when you walk through the doors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time, so just I'll give you a bit of context. So obviously James Hunter we had two Sunderland writers at the Chronicle at the time when I joined. James Hunter obviously went to the press boxes. There were press conferences, They were limiting how many people could go because of COVID. So even when Lee Johnson was there, he sort of sat at home tapping up from the press conference on YouTube to then like going in person and things like that. It's just such a strange experience for, being your first football gig. You've got this perception of what things are going to look like. And then I don't think I saw Sunderland win for like 6 months. Like, you've got like, I was getting called a curse at work, and it was just like, you've got like defeats to Mansfield in the FA Cup, and they'd win on the road. But again, it was at the time where they'd only let limited amount of people go in the press box. So, I'm at home games thinking, am I ever going to see like a win here? Like, am I actually a curse? But then obviously, like they ended up winning at Wembley, and touch wood, I've not seen Sunderland lose at Wembley yet, so I don't want to say I'm a good luck charm, but just putting that out there just in case anyone calls us for drinks again.
I'd say like Gav's got an opposite curse every time we go to the toilet at the stadium, and like we end up scoring. So we always have to tell them to do that. But look, we'll get into Sunday's game, obviously against Aston Villa. But for a start, Sunday games, early kickoffs. Are you a fan? Because I'm not sure I've met many people who are.
It just felt weird, didn't it? Like 2:00, and I don't mind it in the sense of work. You get finished sort of an hour earlier than what you would do, but it just felt like strange. And then again, you're back at work on the Monday. It's like, I've not really had a day off yet. Like, but yeah, it was strange. It just walking about the game beforehand. And normally when you're driving in, like on a Saturday, you see people on the way at the pub, even if it's around like, if it's 3:00 kickoff, sort of driving about 12, you go in, you can see people milling about on your way in. Just felt really quiet. It was strange, but I mean, we'll get into the game in a bit. I mean, the atmosphere I thought was brilliant for it being a Sunday game.
Yeah. I was thinking that normally they're a bit flat on a Sunday, especially the really early lunchtime kickoffs. But the early news, I think, kind of hit everybody almost in the morning of the game. Really, that Diarra would be out. I mean, when did that news start filtering through to the press box?
Yeah, I mean, there was murmurings, wasn't there, on social media, sort of heading into the game, and it's tough having. We often have the press conference on the Thursday, so you have one more training session. But it was filtering through, obviously, just on the day of the game that he might sort of not start. And then obviously you're left sort of trying to guess the team who's going to come in. Would Lafee come and play in that sort of central role? I think everyone was surprised, and we'll get on to Chris Rigg a bit later, but I thought he was brilliant coming into that position, and I felt really unfortunate. I felt good for him when he had to come off.
Yeah. Well, just on that, when you heard the news that Diarra was out, what was was there a lot of assumptions going on about who would go in? Because, you look at the Palace game, and I actually thought Adingra was maybe finding himself a bit unlucky to miss out.
Yeah, I thought it would have been, like you say there, I thought it would have been Lafee sort of centrally, Adingra, and then Talby on either side. I mean, that's the thing with Regis Labree's side, isn't it? He likes to keep sort of a settled 11, and when players do come in, they'll take their chance. But yeah, I thought Adingra was slightly hard done by to drop out the side. But just from speaking to Regis at his press conferences, he makes it clear, or he has made it clear, that he's going to pick the best players he sees fit for the opposition. So I don't know whether he was predicting Villa to maybe have a little bit, I don't know, more of the ball, or I don't know, because we'll get onto it again in a little bit, but I thought Villa were really poor. They weren't what I thought they were going to be. So yeah, it was surprising to see Rigg in there. I actually asked Regis about what his plan for Chris Rigg is this season, and he said it's just more of the same. So can he step up again? And it's something that we've seen from, coming through the ranks, under 15 Floodlit tournament, under 21s, championship. He's risen to the occasion every time, and yeah, I thought he was really good again before he had to come off.
Yeah, but I mean, just based on that questioning that you've put to the manager, it's interesting because you almost think that with Chris Rigg, it's a bit of a project still, but it's almost like they're desperate to give him game time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something Labree said. He asked him a little bit about, we forget, or I do in particular, you forget how young he is because of how many games he's played, and he's only turned 18 this summer, and you see him on the pitch, and it's just maturity of it, of the kid. He said it's really rare that you come across a player like this, and I just think he's a player in particular, and you get homegrown players like this, he just sort of epitomises the fan base. He knows what's expected of him, full-blooded in tackles, and yeah, he didn't give too much away because Regis doesn't at his presses in regards to team news and how he views, things playing out for the rest of the season. But you do. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and plays that central role, because he's clearly got the faith of the manager.
Yeah, we'll come back on that. And I keep reminding my lads just turned 12, and I keep reminding them, I said, Chris Rigg scored he had a goal disallowed in the FA Cup when he was 15, so you've got a lot to do in the next 3 years, but not sure he's having any of it. But just going into the game, Sunderland had the upper hand in the early stages, but it seems like you could tell both sides weren't great at going forward, and both sides seemed to be working out how the opposition would do in their press. I mean, how do you think the game was panning out when it was 11 versus 11?
Yeah, I actually thought before the red card, obviously, I thought Sunderland were just starting to get on top, just starting to, I thought they adapted to the game, the better of the two sides. I thought, like you say there, I thought it was a bit of a chess match, and I think that we're going to see a lot of that this season with teams trying to figure out Sunderland, because they've got so many players in, and they're not like Leeds, where I think Sunderland, they are a lot more pragmatic with their approach, whereas the likes of Leeds, Daniel Farke's side tend to be the same sort of full octane high press, whereas Sunderland are sit back in a bit more. And yeah, I thought Sunderland actually got the measure. I thought Reynaldo down the left hand side, that battle with Gessend and then even Matty Cash, I thought that was going to be a real key point, and I actually thought the Sunderland fullback was getting the better of Villa down that side, and then obviously that incident occurred, and it's changed the whole dynamic of the game.
Yeah, that's it. Well, just quickly before we come on the red card, there was about 25 minutes gone, and probably the best chance of the half fell to Villa. It was Gusson in the box, and he did hit it straight at Roofs. I think a yard either side, he might have given him some problems. But it's funny because, you look at all the games, and I think maybe apart from Burnley, actually, where I think we were maybe on the front foot, but we've had good reminders in games where, I think there was the Bowen chance for West Ham, the Brentford disallowed goal, Palace sliced us open with one pass. But it's funny because you didn't see this in the Championship where, you think you're on top, you'll feel really comfortable in the game. Suddenly, one pass and they're in, and you could have been behind.
That's it, isn't it? It's just that, for me, especially sort of the Pino chance at Crystal Palace, that's just a sign of you can't switch off. You have to be at it all the time, and that is the difference between the Championship. It's something I asked Trai Hume, actually, like what main difference has you noticed since the new players have come in, and even then it's just the levels in training, it's the speed, and I think it was Barnes who asked about what, the difference, the step up. It's just the speed in which things are playing, and if you're not on it all the time, then those chances will happen. I mean, it's expected to happen. It's football, isn't it? This is, the top division in the world. But I think Sunderland made a really good start, to be honest.
Yeah. That's it. Look, let's get into the red card, because that was the turning point, really. Because I got frustrated with this one because Cash had a little nibble at Ronaldo, and it wasn't anything more than you'd expect from any defender, just to leave a bit in on a player, just to let him know that you're there. But Ronaldo seemed to fling himself to the ground a little bit. Then he kicked out with both feet, and Cash went down and made the most of it, of course, like he's going to do. But the silly thing was, we had possession, we had the free kick, and Ronaldo completely flipped the situation on its head.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought he had a really good start. I know obviously he's given away the penalty at Brentford earlier on the season, and I've seen some people sort of question, is he a bit of a liability? I think in that situation there against, Villa, I thought it was just like, what is he doing? Like, it was such frustration. We're blessed with replays, but just looking down straight on that incident, you could see straight away that he just sort of like, it's so difficult to explain because it's 2-footed, like sort of kick out. There's not a lot in it, but when you do that right under the nose of like the fourth official, you just got no defence, have you? And then he sort of feigned injury a little bit. I don't know. I just don't know what he was doing in that incident. It was disappointing because he'd made a really good start, and I know Cash has rolled around a bit, but I think if the shoe was on the other foot, then yes, Sunderland fans would have expected the same.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a conversation going on behind the scene? Because you mentioned that Brentford game, and he should have given a penalty away in the first half at Brentford for rugby tackling someone on the ground. He got away with that one, and then made exactly the same mistake by giving the penalty away. And then there's this. Do you think there's going to be conversations with him behind the scenes to maybe kind of keep him in check? Because the problem is, you look at how we've been attacking and how much has come down that left-hand side because of his overlap. He's so important to the way we play. We can't really afford him to do this too often, can we?
Yeah, I mean, it was something Gav said, wasn't it, on the last pod that he did it. He's come from the Diego Simeone school of like hard knock defending, and I think that is ingrained into him. I think just what I'd say on obviously a bit of the flack that he's been getting, is he liable? I think it's far too early to say that. I don't think there'd be those conversations yet. I just think it's the type of player he is. If you flip it over to the other side with the Trai Hume tackle, if he gets sent off, or then people having that sort of conversation, I just think it was a really poor sort of rush of blood to the head in that instant from an experienced player. I think if it carries on, then yeah, definitely, I think there'll be conversations to be had, because when you're in a battle for survival, I know Sunderland have made a good start, but obviously survival is, the prerogative this season. You can't afford to go down to 10 men with, silly sort of incidents like that.
Yeah, that's it. And it seemed, I mean, you probably, from your vantage point, know more than me, but it seemed like when that, when the red card was given, it seemed like in terms of the tactical setup with the players that were left, and then they obviously had the substitute for Ballard came on for Rigg, which we'll come on to. But just in terms of the tactical setup, that 5-3-1 formation that we went into, did it seem to you like that is something they've worked on? Because it seemed to me like they clicked straight into it.
Yeah, I mean, they must have. I mean, just to sort of on a point, when teams go down to 10 men, I know Michael Beale's reign at Sunderland was pretty disastrous, but he had a sort of formation that he would go to when he went down to 10 men with a 4-3-2. So obviously he'd sacrificed the striker role in that way. And he did like a seminar on how, sort of effective it is at playing with that way, limiting space, etc. it's the first time I've sort of seen anybody go to like a back five with a three in front. And then obviously, because it's a lot of work for Wilson Isidore, and we saw how much effort he put in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. They looked really, apart from, I think from the incident to the second half, to the halftime, sorry, I thought it was a little bit frantic. But when they came out after that, I thought they were really settled and assured. I thought Dan Ballard was brilliant coming on. He got up to the pace of the game sort of really quickly. And there was just a real structure and solidity to it, wasn't there? I thought they didn't give away a lot of chances, even though they had 10 men. Obviously, there was the odd sort of instance, towards the end of the game where they put that ball in. I don't know if it was Watkins or Elliott's gone sliding in at the back post. That was a bit of a nervy moment. But other than that, I can't think off the top of my head of many two clear-cut chances that Roofs had to make after going down to 10 men.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just stop there for a quick break, and we'll be back after these ads.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
And welcome back to Howie the podcast. And we'll go straight into just after that sending off where we left off, Matty. And just on that quick substitution, because we said Ballard came on for Rigg, we'll definitely get into Ballard. But Chris Rigg, he was clearly disappointed, and he started off so brightly. Look, he's Premier League, bow in terms of starting a game. And, he made that early chance for Isidore, and he looked like he was flying, and it was a shame he had to come off.
Yeah, I mean, just on that chance, you see him after that just sort of like take a breath and say, all right, I'm more than capable of playing at this level. It was such a quality little through ball. And even that little confidence would have given him a bit of a lift. And you could see how disappointed he was when he came off. He went on social media afterwards and just sort of reiterated the point, it's not how I saw my Premier League debut going. Yeah. But again, it showed his character. Like, it's more important that the lads battled for a point. I actually, and I don't know whether I'm being overly critical, but I don't think Enzo Lafay had his best game against Villa. I actually thought he could have been replaced, but I think just in terms of experience, Labree's probably looked at it and thought, I know it's Chris Rigg, I know it's his debut, but there's no real room for sentiment here. We've got to bring on someone like Dan Ballard and just show things up. And in the end, it panned out, it worked. Yeah, I just don't think that was Lafay's best game.
Yeah. I think he went with work rate, didn't he? Because it just showed, because the 10 minutes going into half time after that, we did well to ride it out. And I was looking at Trai Hume's comments when he said at half time the manager needed to get in and work a few details out. So even though they snapped into that formation, there was Labree had to go to work at half time and really kind of go in detail and say this is how we have to play, because it was nervy in the last stages of the first half.
Yeah, it was. And it's tough, isn't it? Because the frantic nature of, there's adrenaline. I actually thought the red card sucked a bit of the energy out of the stand as well. And I thought that half-time break brought sort of a renewed sort of vigour in the stands. They were right behind them. The first couple of tackles after the interval really helped get Sunderland supporters going again. They got the game going, the crowd going. And I think even switching Talby over to that left-hand side, I think that's probably the best performance I've seen from him this season. I don't know whether that was because he'd had a little bit more space in between Matty Cash and whoever was playing, guessing in front of him on that side. But yeah, it was just that message at halftime. I don't know what was said, but that message must have been crucial, because, they came out and it was like a switch had been flicked. It was like, just calm down, take a moment, reset and go again. And thought Sunderland made a real battle of it after that, and Villa just didn't have really any responses. They didn't know what to do. Yeah,
just on the manager making the step up to the Premier League, how impressed have you been? Because again, if you look at the games that, and sometimes you don't even notice these things till after, but you looked at the West Ham game to start with, and West Ham came at us first half because Graham Potter made tweaks. but then we made tweaks to combat that and got back into the game. And it seems like every game, and again, it's not something you notice when you're just watching the game, first time round. But then afterwards, you can see how Labry's been, responding to other managers' changes. And it seems like, last season it was just get over the line. But this season, he seems to be really earning his coin in terms of those changes he's making during the game.
Yeah, again, I sort of asked Labry something similar in his press conference a couple of weeks back. Didn't give a lot away because it was tactical, so he's not.
And he never does anyway.
Yeah, it was more of a case of like how just on last season, like how do you bringing in new players? You're obviously going to be able to try tweak things. It was sort of what has he been able to tweak? And again, didn't give anything away, but you're bringing in players like Xhaka who can fit into any sort of system. We'll get on to a little bit about the style of play, but I actually think the Regis Labry style of play is so simplistic, and that's not taking anything away from how effective it can be. We saw last year just like going from a sort of, it's like a 4-3-3, 4-4-1-1, whatever you want to call it, but how easy it is for players to come in. It's square pegs, square holes, and we've seen the same thing this season, but with just sort of an increase in quality. So again, like just going back to the comments I asked him, it was sort of what have you worked on? What has it been easy for you to do? And he said the players have just sort of bought into it. And I think again that just shows how simplistic the style of play is, but also when you increase that quality, it's really effective. And I think that's what's been sort of the foundations behind the good start this season.
Yeah. And well, actually, you were talking about getting the fans back, kind of that energy back up. Well, 5 minutes into the second half, Alderete hit the bar with a header. But this was a consequence of a sequence of events over the few minutes before that. Long free kicks, big diagonals that I don't think I've seen since Peter Reid, from the halfway line all the way up to the back stick, corners, long throw-ins. I mean, it was like a throwback to get the ball in back in the mixer and see what happens. But do you think clearly that discussion at half time, that was, well, we're not going to be able to play through Villa with a man down. So let's rely on the set piece. Let's get balls into the danger area and get our heads on it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't privy to the half-time talk, but just go and stick it on them, and Sunderland did. I thought the long throw again. We've seen a lot more of that this season, haven't we? I think Guardiola, for how much he's heralded for changing the style of play, he's gone to like big physical units. Newcastle, a big physical team. I know Sunderland supporters don't want to talk about that, but just this summer that Sunderland have had bringing players in like Nordi Mukiele, Omar Alderete is massive, Dan Ballard huge. Villa didn't know what to do when this physical battle was like on them. They're like, well, what do we do here? Like, there was that one stage, wasn't it, in the second half where there's like 3 Villa players, just bodies on the floor, and they're sort of like appealing to the referee, like, why haven't you given anything? It's I love to see that. I know we've gone away, sometimes just mundane passing from side to side, and I wouldn't necessarily want to see it every week, just lumping it long if it's not effective. But when just in that moment, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was exactly what the occasion needed.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I like seeing throwbacks like that, because actually for the next 15 minutes or so, it was all Sunderland. It was we looked like the ones who were going to score. But there's this debate going on at the moment, because we took control of the game that second half down to 10 men. Is how much do we look at it being impressed with Sunderland? And there's this other part that people are saying, well, this is a very poor Aston Villa side, and people expect more from them. So do we take a bit of both, or do we just look at Sunderland and go, no, we took on the team that we were facing and we played well?
Yeah, I think you've got to take a look at the full picture, haven't you? I mean, this game in particular, when you look at the fixtures came out, I thought that's maybe Palace as well. I thought they're the 2 games where it might come unstuck. This is where it might start to sort of go downhill a bit. But I thought Villa were really, really poor. They're not what I expected. Just on Palace and Villa, they're 2 teams that are playing in Europe this season. I think it's testament to sort of Sunderland's recruitment this summer. They've gone shoulder to shoulder and matched them. And again, I think, we'll never know, but if they had 11 men on the pitch, I would have backed Sunderland to come away with 3 points, because I thought they were the better team by far. I know there was an odd, nervy moment, but yeah, I think just the approach that Sunderland had, the crowd really helped. They got behind them, and that, again, they're really unfortunate, I think, the situation with the 10 men, because we're going to be left sort of questioning what if. What if they'd had 11 men? They could have been 3 points. It could have been, statistically one of the best starts in the Premier League. And again, when that maybe I'm being too harsh, but it's still a great start. But yeah.
It was hard not to think what if. But just going into another throwback on 65 minutes, and this has caused a bit of controversy, and I heard on the radio as well. 65 minutes, Trai Hume goes flying in for a tackle. I think Marco Gabardini was saying, that really should have been a red card. Everyone else is saying it was a tackle. He made contact with the ball. Some people saying, does that matter because he played the man so hard? I know Watkins himself wasn't too happy about it, but what did you make of that tackle?
Oh, well, I think at the time I sort of winced in the press box looking at it, but from where we were, you could see the ball sort of like skew off to one side. I think the way the ball hadn't come away, the referee might have had a decision to make. I think the clip going around on social media from that angle where it's looking at Trai Hume coming face on, it makes it look worse than what it was. It's slowed down. I love it. I love a good crunching tackle. Like, there needs to be more of it, in my opinion. I mean, if he gets it wrong, don't get us wrong. If he gets it wrong, it's a red card. But he didn't. He does get a touch on the ball, and yeah, I mean, I think Morgan Rogers obviously complained about it on social media that their fans were saying as well that he didn't have his his best game. I think a bit of frustration from him maybe on social media after the game. Barnesy again asked Trai Hume first question in the mix zone. What did you make of the tackle? And just Trai Hume, nick the ball, quality tackle. I was like, fair enough. I know.
Of course, I said it was Watkins. It was Rogers. You're right. And was there a split in the press box? Was the Villa press saying, hang on a minute, and Sunderland press going, well, yeah, that's what he does.
Well, that's it. I mean, just behind the scenes, obviously, we're all now over one side, so I'm not entirely sure where the Villa lot were, but I think Sunderland echo me, and we're just also like, he's not got away with one because I don't think it's a foul. I think he just wins the ball and does get a bit of the man, but yeah.
Well, I think it's quite interesting actually because it comes from that Sunderland. I think almost, I'm not going to point it completely at that, but it's potentially a catalyst for Sunderland losing concentration because it comes from that, where basically Sunderland don't press the ball after that for about 30 seconds, and it ends up with Cash in the middle of the park, who's got loads of time to line up a shot and then smashes it at Roofs, and it ends up in the back of the net. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about how much the ball swerved. It was the sun in his eyes, how he goes to maybe punch it rather than palm it. I mean, what was your take on the goal?
Yeah, I don't want to be too critical of the goalkeeper because he's made a great start of the season. I actually, when I saw it in real time, I thought he's got to do better there. He does get something on it, goes in the back of the net. When you watch it again, sort of from the angle behind the goal, it's right in between the shadow and the sun. Again, I don't know whether it affected him or not. It does swerve in the air, comes through a crowd of bodies, and it's hit with real sort of venom. I said it was a worldie on Twitter at the time. Looking back, I think the keeper probably could have done better. He will be disappointed, but I'm not going to sort of hammer him too much. I do think I just think it was a well hit strike. I know he does go with his fist, but I think he's sort of, you see his body shift onto his right. He thinks the ball's going that way, and then obviously it does swerve last minute, and he's just sort of flapped at it. So, yeah. Tough one to take, I think. He will be disappointed with that.
Well, you could see his reaction. You could see his reaction that he thought himself he should have done better because he was devastated when the ball went in.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. I think that the tackle beforehand maybe this did the switch off. As we said at the start of the show, you can't afford to switch off. I think they thought they could get a breather. They defended so well up to that point that maybe they did switch off, and I don't think the goalkeeper switches off. I think he's actually really alert to it, and it's just that you can't leave a man free on the edge of the box. There's sort of not a catalogue of errors. It's just you've got to stay on it all the time. And I think that was just maybe the one occasion in the game where Sunderland sort of switched off.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the crowd pushed us on, and we got back into it 10 minutes later. And you mentioned Talby earlier on, going down. At first, he went down the line, attacked them, got a ball in. That was half cleared. We got the ball back out to Talby. Then he cut inside this time, took a shot, and that was cleared up. And I saw a post you put on the socials, basically just saying this was the difference between the two sides. Ball loops up in the end. If you actually pause the game there, I think there's 10 outfield players for Villa are within 30 yards of the goal, and there's only Xhaka and Isidore in the picture, I think, and Talby obviously wide, and nobody challenges Xhaka at all for the header.
Yeah, I mean, If I'm a Villa fan watching that, I am screaming at the telly. I'm absolutely screaming at the telly. Not taking anything away from Xhaka. Brilliant little header. Isidore reacts really well, does well to stay on side as well. But that clip where even Watkins is going with the runner, I don't know if it was a Villa fan replied that if Watkins gets anything on Xhaka, it's a free kick on the edge of the area. I don't think it is. The ball is in the air that long. Why does nobody challenge that ball? It just left us scratching my head. I thought it in real time, then watched it back, and I thought it was even worse. Like, Emery came out afterwards, didn't he, and said it was lazy. And I just think I don't know what they were doing. There was that many bodies behind the ball, and if that's my team conceding that goal, I'm absolutely furious with it. Not taking anything away from the header. I thought the header was absolutely brilliant. How many players would just sort of panic? But it's a deft little header back over the defence, in behind, and great finish from Wilson.
Yeah, and just to touch on Talby, because we've been playing him on the right hand side, but seeing him attack there and be positive, I think he's been solid. He's had brilliant work rate down that right hand side, but on that left, he looked positive. He went at players. He looked to be a little bit freer. I mean, is that something we can look at moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's something that you can consider. I mean, it's tough. You always have to consider, the adaptation period, don't you, from a young player. He's still a young player. Reed just sort of spoke about him in his press conference saying, look, he's still a young lad. He's only, 20, something like that. And on the left-hand side, I know I touched on it earlier at the beginning of the pod, I don't know how much of a difference his pace was. Villa didn't know what to do, but I don't know whether his positioning, I thought his positioning was great. In between sort of Villa's right winger and right back, and he just had so much space to run into. I think with 11 men on the pitch, he maybe doesn't get that much space, sorry. I think he's maybe higher up the pitch, but I thought that was a real key sort of factor in the game, was Talby getting him on the ball, carrying it up the pitch, not sort of, just hitting his man, getting the ball, recycling possession. I thought that was actually a really good sort of outlet for Sunderland down that left-hand side.
Yeah. And that's another good part for us to stop for a quick break. We'll be back after these.
New Icy Hot. Nighttime recovery. Relieves pain at nighttime while your body recovers. Icy Hot. You're so back.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Ads. And welcome back to How We're the Podcast, and we're just about finished reviewing the game against Aston Villa, because I think the last thing I wanted to mention was talking about moments earlier on in that early chance in the first half for Villa. In injury time, we let a ball, we give them plenty of time to put a cross to the back post, and Sancho did look dangerous when he came on, actually, and he put the ball to the back post. And talking about winning the header against Xhaka, I mean, all Watkins needs to do is make contact on it, and they get all 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, that again was sort of heart-in-mouth moments. I know it said they didn't create a lot, but that was one chance where you're thinking, well, sometimes it's your day, and that was it. Again, just on Watkins, I mean, I don't want to hammer Villa too much. It's not my team, so I suppose I can't, but it's just, he didn't offer anything, and I don't know whether that's testament to just how well Sunderland defended, but I just sort of expected more from him. Like, he's an England international, he's played so well. I actually thought he looked a little bit disinterested, to be honest. I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm being too critical. I just think, like, those chances, you've got to, for a player of his ilk, the levels that he's hit, you're expecting him to at least get sort of something on that.
Yeah, well, that's it. All he needed to do was make some sort of contact. But it kind of summed up Villa, because they just didn't look like they wanted to win the first ball, the second ball, and when they were in the possession, nobody seemed to want to take responsibility. But again, just in terms of that, drawn with 10 men, again, is it another one? Because it's really been confusing because I keep looking at the table and I'm thinking, fantastic. Is it another confusing one where it's difficult to see where we stand because of the opposition and how the game panned out?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just a conversation of how we mate about this. Like, you look at the start that Sunderland have had the season, and on paper, you think, right, we can pick up points here, pick up points here. Villa would have been the game for me where you're thinking, right, Europa League, Emery's had them fly and they've done really well. This is a game where you might lose. You wouldn't necessarily think, right, that we're going to get something from this. Obviously, as things have transpired, Sunderland hit the ground really well, Villa really poor. It's a tough one because, again, like, if they'd had 11 men on the pitch, I would have backed them to get 3 points. And you're looking there and you're coming away from the game slightly disappointed that it was only one. But I think you've just got to keep picking up points. Labrie said, again in his press conference, like, it might take 40 points. And sort of like looked at each other, 40 points. But you look at the numbers last season, I think was Spurs, 17th on 38. And then above them, you've got Wolves and Man United on 42. So I will caveat that with, I think the bottom three were just really poor last season. I don't think it'll take that many points to stay up this year. I think the sides in the bottom half of the table will take more points off one another and it'll be a lot closer. I mean, come back to me if I'm completely wrong. But yeah, the Villa game was really interesting. Like, you're looking at that on paper, like European team, and Sunderland have more than matched them.
Yeah. Just going talking about moving forward a little bit, but obviously that news that broke after the game with Diarra having an operation out until the word from the club is potentially at least December. I'd be surprised if we see him until the new year when they say something like that. But how much of a blow is that? Because I think Diarra was in third or fourth gear, ready to go up to fifth almost. He just needed those minutes. But you've got to consider the players and the versatility and the other players that we've brought in where it gives someone else a chance.
Yeah, completely agree. While he's had a good start, I think you can just tell there's sort of more to come from him. We've sort of seen like glimpses, haven't we? It's now who comes in and sort of fills that role. Like, does Lafay come across? Does Rigg take that role? I think, like, even does he tinker with the system? There's loads of people saying, again, like after the game at Forest this weekend, do they go like to back five and play with two up top? There's like loads of questions off the back of it. Like, again, like you say there, Diarra potentially, the original sort of diagnosis when they want him to come back is December. Does that mean he's then ruled out of the African Cup of Nations? Do they then have a key player back for those period of games where originally you're thinking, oh, well, he's gone. But yeah, there's loads of questions and I'm not sure I've got all the answers.
Well, it's interesting, but because with him being out, and like I said, I would expect him to not come back when we're kind of flying game after game over the Christmas period, but I would expect him to come back in the new year. But it's going to be that interesting dynamic, isn't it? In January, it's almost like we get Diarra as a new signing in January.
Yeah, and it's a bit, you get that, don't you? I mean, you've got like Mundell, etc., to come back in, and I know they're not new signings. They've got to then, lift the level again, but it will be like a new signing. I think what we've seen just in the past couple of weeks is how, it was one sort of question I had in my mind is how are these new signings going to cope with the physicality of the Premier League? And I don't necessarily mean that, game by game getting rolled over, but just how rigorous it is. You've got like the pace of the game, which again, Hume mentioned after the game, is how quick things are coming from France, the Bundesliga across to the Premier League. How are they going to cope with that? And I think if Sunderland can keep the vast majority of those players fit, they should be all right. But again, it's if will they pick up any more injuries in between that time? That's when I think you're starting to think, all right. But we'll see, won't we?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned playing, maybe changing it at 5 at the back and 3 at the back. And this 5 at the back was for a very specific scenario, going down to 10 men and playing in a certain way. But look, with the way Mukiele, Alderete and Ballard played, you can't really, knock people for thinking, well, why can't we play all three of them, all the time? Because all three of them are playing out of their skin. But can you see the manager changing his system so much to give all three a place in the starting 11 just because all three of them are playing really well at the minute?
I mean, he has done it in the past at like Lorient briefly, but I personally think just off judging him on his Sunderland spell, he's been wedded to like that system, hasn't he? About 4-3-3, 4-4-1-1, whatever you want to call it. I don't personally, I mean, again, happy to revisit it if I'm proven wrong, but I don't see him doing that. I think that's what's been so good about Sunderland's transfer recruitment this summer is they have square pegs, square holes. You've got players ready-made to come in and fill those voids. If players get injured for the African Cup of Nations, and again, I'll get on to Forrester in a little bit, but that in particular, this game, I can't see him drastically changing things. Again, I know I don't want to sound like I'm hypocritical and, because of how well they played with a back five, but I just can't see it.
Yeah. But, but you also can't see, even though Ballard is playing out of his skin and playing the best football we've seen him play at Sunderland in the Premier League as well. But Michele and Alderete looks, especially with roofs behind them, have looked so solid. It'd be a huge call to break that partnership up and put Ballard in for one of them.
Yeah, and again, just like looking at that on paper, like Sunderland have signed a centre half from PSG, like who has openly said he's a right back. So like if you're going off just what's been said, you're playing a right back at centre half, and he's looked incredible. He for me has been one of the standout players so far. Again, I could go through the whole team. Like Sadiqi's been class, Roofs has been great. Alderete, I hadn't even heard of him until this summer, and when he's linked, and he's looked really, really good. Just on Ballard, Labrie was asked about does he bring him back in because of how good of a start of the season he had, and he said, like, to be fair to him, he said it's the players who have the shirt, it's theirs to lose. So again, he might shift this after saying that, but yeah, they're good headaches to have, aren't they? I mean, you've got Brian Brobby, who's a 20 million plus signing, who hasn't featured yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at this, because we're obviously going to get injuries and suspensions, and now it begins with Diarra and obviously Ronaldo getting sent off. He's going to, I would guess it's a 3-match ban because it was violent, termed as violent conduct. I mean, so that gives a chance for Masuaku, or, does Hume shift out to the left? Does that give Gertruda a chance at right back? And he's got, maybe it depends how attacking he wants to be. Talby out there, but I can't, that'll be a big call as well. But how do you see him shifting things around with the suspension to Ronaldo?
I think Arthur Masuaku would probably come in, to be honest, at left back. Just square peg, square holes. I don't think he'll move Trai Hume over. There is obviously Lucho Gertruda. Cannot say his name to save my life, but that's my best goal. He's versatile. He can play across obviously the back four. So there's, again, I'm not predicting Labrie to give anything away in his pre-match press conference, but I think Masuaku will come in there. It just seems ready-made. He came on at the weekend, had his sort of first couple of minutes, and yeah, I think that's sort of the route that he'll take.
Yeah, that's it. And Forest away, as you've mentioned, next week, and they're getting used to a new manager with Postecoglou at the helm there now, and they drew at Burnley at the weekend. But they've got a European tie at Real Betis, which they're not used to in midweek. Are you thinking we should go there with confidence?
I actually think that, again, I don't want to sound hypocritical because of the comparisons between Forest and Sunderland. When Forest came up, everyone's sort of comparing Sunderland to that. I think it's completely different. I feel like there was a sort of you've got Marinakis at the top there, his way. You had Steve Cooper at the time. Sunderland has been ready-made players for that position. But watching the two sides, I actually think going off last season under Nuno, the way Forest sort of sat in, hit teams on the counter, they're not too dissimilar to Sunderland with the way that they've played, the physicality that we've seen in that win over Villa. I think it'll be a lot closer than what people are expecting. But at the same time, if I'm Ange Postecoglou, am I sat there, not that I'm taking Sunderland for, lightly here, but am I looking at Sunderland as a Forest manager thinking, right, this is where I can start to implement my style of play on things? And if he does, if he does look to go a bit more attacking as a Sunderland, I rub my hands together and think, right, bring it on, we can hit you on the counter. And yeah, Ange is a strange one, isn't he? Because they've done so well in the Europa League and then just sort of terrible in the Premier League. There's so many sort of questions that you still have about him. How good of a manager is he? He was great at Celtic, coming down here at the Premier League. There's so many sort of unanswered questions.
Yeah. Well, how do you see that dynamic for them, going away to Real Betis? Because some of those players are going to be thinking, it might be their first time playing on that stage, thinking that's the priority. Almost Sunderland are just kind of in the back of their mind, and they almost forget about that until they get back and go, oh, hang on, we've got a game at the weekend here.
It's how quick the turnaround and everything is, isn't it? It's like traveling. I mean, when you just, like, for example, when you come back from holiday, like, oh, I really can't be bothered to do this flight. But they've got to do that, and then you've got the quick turnaround, the game preparation for Sunderland. It's the first time a lot of those players will have had to do that. And obviously, he's done it before with Spurs, but again, just their record last year in the Premier League wasn't great. So something clearly didn't go to plan. It's an interesting one, it is, because how are Forest going to react? Even if they, say, for example, like Betis, they got the final, didn't they, last year? And how in the Conference League, I think it was, how are they going to perform? I mean, they've got a decent side as well. I think it's a really good game for Sunderland to have. It's a game that Sunderland can take advantage of that midweek trip.
Yeah. And I said after the Palace game, I thought that our performance at Selhurst Park was almost a blueprint for an away performance. I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, you're not going to rely on the keeper maybe quite as much, or you might have a few more shots on target, just to be picky. But would you expect us to go in with the same game plan?
Yeah, I would. The question I have is the final third. I think if I'm being critical of Sunderland, and I don't want to be overly harsh because they have scored goals, but that's the one thing that I've sort of had in the back of my mind. Yeah, they're scoring goals at the minute, but when they're not creating a bucket load of chances, and I know with the way that they play, they're not going out on the front foot looking to attack teams. And I do think the Palace game was a good blueprint, but who does he lead? Who does he pick to lead the line? I think if I'm looking at that game, I'd probably switch with my ender for a bit more pace on the counter. That's not taking anything away from Wilson's performance, because I thought he was fantastic, but I just thought he ran his socks off. But I'd probably switch things up just in that regard. Again, we haven't seen Brian Brobby. We don't know what he's going to bring. Forest, our physical side with Milankovic and those Murillo at the back. Could be a game for him. We don't know because we haven't seen anything of him. So
yeah, it's a brilliant position to be in though, because if you're looking at the start and we're both saying, "Oh, fantastic start." Look at the table. It's clearly positioned great in the table, but it's a fantastic position to be that we're going, "Oh, actually, but there's a bit more in this team."
Yeah, I certainly don't feel like we've seen anywhere near like the best Sunderland. I think Labrie doesn't necessarily know his best 11, and it might sound silly to say that, but I just think he's taken his time to bed players in. We will see, like, you never see the same starting 11 at the beginning of the season that you do at the end of the season. That's just not how things work. It's great to have so many sort of selection headaches. It's just picking the right game to sort of bed these players in. And the Forest game is a good game to sort of maybe slightly tinker with things, as long as you're not taking anything away from sort of the defensive structure that they have.
Yeah. And, looking at the opening 5 Premier League games, is the main takeaway from those that essentially we're not afraid of anything really that the Premier League has to throw at us, and we can maybe be confident of getting a result anywhere? Or do we have to really think back and go, actually, we've played this set of teams, and actually in this next tier, we're going to be consistently ramping up towards the new year?
I think it's a bit of both, because just as much as, before when the fixtures came out, you're looking at these games thinking, right, it would be great to get off to a good start and win those games. If you don't, all of a sudden, you're left looking at the following games, like around Christmas time, thinking, where did the points come from? So they're on the board, and it's been a good start, and you also have a blueprint for the bigger games. And I think Sunderland, again, Labrie's style of play is actually more suited to the Premier League than maybe those teams that have come up. I can't say I've watched bucket tons of Burnley or Leeds United on my days off, but the way that they've started the season's encouraging, and I think you can look at it like that.
Yeah, it is funny though. You look at the sides we've played, and maybe I'm trying to think, maybe except Burnley, the rest of them have all had something going on where they were in the news for negative reasons. That there's something going on at the club, the expectations. West Ham, Brentford was still finding their feet. Andrews, Palace with a gay story. You had all these backdrops. Villa, not good start of the season, and then you look next. After you go beyond Forest, new manager, they've had problems. Then you go Man United. Obviously, they've got their problems. Then Wolves, they've got their problems. And it's very easy for us to maybe look at all those games and get a bit carried away. And do we have to keep our eye on the prize and just say this season is just about staying up, just picking up these points, rather than, actually, if we win all those three, then basically the outcome of the season changes a little bit, and we think, actually, how far can we go?
Yeah, well, that's the joy of it, isn't it? Like, get carried away. And our debut sadly passed away. That was his line. It was. I mean, I just think back to like League One. Like, I'm sat there in the stand with nobody there, and then now I'm going to games, and there's just such a buzz. And if you can't get carried away watching Sunderland play in the Premier League after being away for 8 years, then when can you? Yeah, look, there will be like Man City. They might get thrashed like 8-0. Like, there's some games where City and Liverpool just, like, Leeds got thrashed 5-0 the other week. It will happen. Like, it's just riding. It's trying to stay level-headed, especially as a journalist, like looking at things from a clear point of view, not thinking, God, this is gonna happen. It's great. Like, get the European tour, get your passport out. But they have made a good start, and it's no slight on Sunderland. Like, at the end of the day, these clubs are going through, whatever difficulties they're going through. Sunderland have picked up points. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, well, talking about our European tour is probably a good place to finish up before we get really carried away. But I assume you're off to the City Ground at the weekend?
No, not this weekend. No.
So the next game, what you'll be covering, because there's Man United after that, and then Wolves?
I think it'll be the next home game, yeah. Wolves will be the next one I go to.
Good stuff. Well, we've got a couple of games to negotiate in between then. But that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Matty. An absolute pleasure. And thanks again for your time, mate.
No, thanks very much for having me. It's been great.
Good stuff. And hopefully catch up soon as well. Hopefully get you back on plenty of times during the season, mate. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. And you can head over to the Roker Report website if you want more this very second, or you can just wait 24 hours for the next How Are the podcast to drop, because we've got loads coming up this week ahead of the game against Forest. I think Gav rattled it all off in the podcast the other day. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.